most of my life, I've ridden, raced, and followed the technical evolution and development of Yamaha racing bikes. Well, the bug started in 1973 with my first race bike, which was a converted road bike into a replica TD1 race bike. I progressed on, then the next machine was actually a real pucker race bike, the TR2. That's when I really started to get interested in the machines. So then I thought, well, why not make a collection of every single production race? So I started to do that, and then unfortunately my garage wasn't big enough to house that many bikes, so what I decided was I wanted to collect one of every significant production change, and that's what I've ended up with. That's my collection. Why Yamaha? Because they're available was probably one of the big things, and then I continued on to stick with the Yamahas because not only were they available, but I found that there's a lot of interchangeability. What it meant you could do, you could take parts from one bike onto another, so it made the collecting of bikes, and especially keeping them running, much easier because you could use parts from other machines, which allowed me to modify the bikes and get an older bike and what have you, and continue on. It's a personal collection that ultimately I'm a custodian of some significant New Zealand bikes and some technology here that eventually will be sold to other people, hopefully like-minded, that just take an interest and just love the Yamaha story. Here we have 1969 TR2 350 air-cooled. This is Yamaha's really first 350cc production racer available to people. The significance of this machine is the adoption of the frame from the factory bikes and the large drum brakes on the front, 4-leading shoe and rear, along with its 250cc brother. This really started to set the scene as a bike available to the average rider that would be very competitive. So my first racing career was really from 1973 to 78, when I came to a bit of a crossroad really. I had to either buy a new TZ or get engaged. I chose to get engaged, and that was the end of my first race career. Phillip Island, well, it's a fantastic place just to be able to ride on a world-class Grand Prix circuit. Hard on the side of the tyre, accelerating, and then turn 3 is just mind-blowing, hard in 4th or 5th gear around there. 20 years later, I caught the bug again. I was after every production racer that Yamaha made. So this next machine is a 1972 TR3 350. Yamaha also built this in a 250 version called the TD3. It was air-cooled still. Major changes here were the adoption of crankcases from road bikes, very much like the previous ones, but they were usable on a 250 or a 350. A few of the carryovers were also the big drum brake was there, but what was also significant was the move to electronic ignition. They had factory-fitted electronic ignition. So, and a 6-speed gearbox. So all of these things created more speed, more reliability. This also formed the platform of the next big significant change for Yamaha, which was going from air-cooled to water-cooled. The TR3, that was significant. It was the last of the 350 air-cooled, but it was also the foundation for what was to become the TZ. Yamaha water-cooled that, and then that started the whole line of water-cooled Yamahas. Previously, the air-cooled bikes, they suffered from, especially in long races, the fact that the charge heated up and they lost power. They didn't actually have the durability, whereas water cooling maintains a constant temperature for the intake charge, and the horsepower remained pretty stable. So that gave much more durable power delivery and for longer. So the next model change was in fact the Lowboy, or the F model, which became my favorite bike and still is.